Hello and welcome back to a new watercolour video. Today I'm going to do a cute little gingerbread Christmas card. So I'm going to do a series of Christmas cards throughout November, and this is watercolour and coloured pencil. So I'm going to do this step by step if you want to follow along. And as always, if you don't want to draw it yourself, you can download this free of charge on my Patreon, and I'll link that below in the video description, and you can trace it onto your paper. So I've used these paints today, the Gansai Tambi watercolours and the Derwent Drawing pencils. Now you don't have to obviously use the same stuff as me, you can just pick similar colours, but I've just got these new gorgeous pencils and they're really soft and lovely to use. So this is quite simple because it's a little bit of watercolour just as a base and then doing all the detail with coloured pencil. So this is a lot easier than just watercolour alone. So I've got my design printed out and I changed the measurements when I printed it, and I'm going to put it on one of these cards. So just a tip, if you're doing the same as me, measure the size of the card and then make sure that you print out the edges of the picture smaller, and you can have whatever thickness border. Mine will just be about 3/4 centimetre all the way around. And I'm going to use a hot press watercolour paper. This one's Fabrian or Artistico hot press. So I just want it to be a little bit bigger, about here. And then I've attached the image first of all to the light board and taped it down, then put the watercolour paper over the top and then taped that down as well. And then I'm just going to carefully trace over the design. Now I'm going to tape it to a board. You can tape it to your desk, but I'm just going to tape it to a little board so that I can move the board around. And then I'm going to put the washi tape on. I'm going to make sure the washi tape covers that pencil line. So the pencil line is just a guide to get your washi tape nice and straight, but we want to cover the pencil line as well slightly. And then another layer because just to hold it down. Finally getting to use some of my lovely Christmas washi tape. And I'm going to use the Gansai Tambi watercolours again, which I'm getting quite a few comments. People are really liking the fact that I'm using these. So I'm going to pick out some colours. It's going to be all nice, warm, beigey colours. So the 4 colours I'm going to use are, I think just this one out of the Art Nouveau set, and that's the Flax Beige. And then out of the larger 48 set, Cadmium Scarlet, Blue Grey Deep and Raw Umber Deep. I'm going to do a nice glittery background. So the colour I'm going to use is out of the Fragments set, and I'm going to use the gold fragments. So that's this one. I'm going to get a little bit of water on that because it needs a good few minutes to soften, and I'll just pop that aside while I mix the other colours up. So I'm going to start with the very first layer is going to be this Flax Beige. So I'm going to get some of that made up, and into that I'm going to add the gold fragments. Not quite soft enough, so I will leave that for another couple of minutes. So I'm going to add that into the Flax Beige. Give it a good mix. So for the very first background layer, I'm going to paint all the way around the gingerbread man, and I'm going to come up to this line here. So we need to wet the paper. So I've got a really small mop brush that'll wet the paper quite quickly. I'm going to carefully go right around the edges. So I'm adding a second layer of water because some of that first layer really does seep into the paper. So we want a nice sheen on the paper, a nice even sheen. And then I'm going to get that colour that I mixed up and drop it in all over the wet area, and with the paper being pre-wet it'll help create a nice smooth even layer. I'm going to add more of this into the paint because there isn't really a huge amount of, I want it to be quite glittery with it being Christmassy. So I'm trying to, you can see the sparkles, I'm trying to even those out as well, so I'm kind of like spreading them out just to try and avoid massive clumps. Okay, I'm going to dry that off with the heat tool and then we'll move on to the second layer. Okay, so that's layer 1 dry. Now I'm going to re-wet the paper again. I'm going to mix up some of the raw Umber Deep. I'm going to re-wet that whole area again. And then right around the edges, I'm going to drop in that darker mixture. I have to get some from the pan. Actually, make it a little bit darker. And then I've washed the brush off so there's no paint on it, got most of the water off, and just blend a little bit on the inside edge. Just tidy it up a little bit. Clean the brush again. Just going to leave that one to dry. Now that's fully dry, I'm going to move on to the ground area. I'm going to mix a little bit of the raw Umber Deep and a little bit of the blue-grey Deep. I'm going to wet the whole of the ground area. So we don't want this to be too wet, just a little bit damp. So I'm going to give that a minute. I'm going to mix this and this together just to give it kind of warmish grey. And I'm just going to put a very, very light layer. And then with a bit of stronger mix and just the very tip of the brush, I'm just going to, where these little lines are, just drop in just some little bits of random little pieces and lines just to make it look like a kind of uneven surface, to get a little bit of texture in there. And then I'm getting some of the even stronger colour, and then underneath the feet I'm going to add kind of a shadow under the feet. I'm going to get a little bit more of the grey colour, quite strong, because the shadow's not really dark enough. Now I'm going to leave that to dry and mix up some colour for the gingerbread man. So I've got some yellow ochre, which is a much kind of warmer colour for the gingerbread man himself. Then I've got the raw umber, and then I've mixed the two together to make this colour. So I'm going to wet the whole of the ginger man, and I'm going to leave out the little buttons, and I'm going to leave out these little pieces here, which will be like a white icing. I'm going to get some of the yellow ochre and just I only want a light wash over the whole thing. Just super light to give it a little bit of a warm undertone. And I'm going to get some of the mixture, the middle colour. I'm going to add some of that. Leave a little bit of a lighter area up the top here. So I've dried it off just a little bit and it's still damp. I'm going to get some of the darker colour and drop it in around the left hand side of the head and around the neck area. And just all down the left hand side. These bottom areas. Just try and leave a little bit of a lighter area over to the right. Then I'm going to quickly dry that off. So this has dried a little bit weird. I've noticed this before. When I drop that some darker colours into a lighter colour, it leaves kind of an almost lighter area, if you can see. It's a bit weird. I think it might be just that one paint, that one brown paint. But it doesn't matter because it's just a base layer. I might have another go and do this card again, only in normal watercolours. That's it for the watercolour now. So the rest's going to be coloured pencil. So this is just going to be an underneath layer, and we're going to add lots of coloured pencil over the top. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do the black outlines before I move on to the coloured pencil. So I'm just going to use a black fountain pen, and I'm going to outline the outside. I'm going to make it a bit of a wobbly line, not a perfect line, so it's a little bit of a broken line, just to make the gingerbread man look kind of, you know, like it's got a little bit of a rough surface because it's made of biscuit. Make the little icing parts a little bit smoother. I'm going to add a little bit of shading here to make it look like there's an edge there, an edge of the biscuit, and then a few little wiggly lines coming off that so that it looks like There's some bumpy snow under the foot. Little edge bit on this side as well. So on all the right hand sides there's a little edge piece there. We do a little edge piece on here. And then I'm going to go over the snowy areas with just some little bumps in the snow, so across the edge. I'm going to add a few little bits on the gingerbread man himself, just a few little tiny little, just to indicate some bumps on the surface. And a lot of it will get covered up with pencil. I'm doing more kind of around the neck area where it's going to be darker. Yeah, just a few random little dots all over the place. Maybe a little bit more shaded area on the bottom of these buttons here. Okay, so looking quite cute so far. So now we'll move on to the coloured pencil and finish it off. So I'm going to use this gorgeous set of Derwent Drawing pencils. So these are fairly new if you haven't seen them before. For years and years and years there was only 24 colours available in these, and they're the most beautiful pencils to use. And now they've released another 48 colours, so there's now 78 in total. Right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use this really dark brown chocolate colour, and I'm going to draw in the Merry Christmas. I'm going to add a little bit of shading over the gingerbread man, so I'm using two beige colours, brown ochre and warm earth. I'm just going to put a rough layer all over with the brown ochre. So this is the lighter colour. A few little darker flecks here and there. I think I want something a little bit more warmer. I'm going to pick some different colour because it's not much different from the background, and I want it to be a lot more, you know, orangey. I might add in a little bit of apricot just to warm it up a little bit. And then just add some little darker flecks with this warm earth. Now I'm going to go in with dark brown, and I'm going to add a lot more shadowing. So we want the shadowing to be on the left hand side. Just in all the bottom areas. We're going to go down this side, just kind of fade it into the middle a little bit, and quite a lot at the bottom. Then I'm going to get the chocolate, which is even darker, and take that more over to the edge. The neck area. I'm going to get a lighter colour and kind of blend this a little bit here. I'm going to get pretty dark around that edge. I'm going to lift some of this out, lighten the face a little bit. It's just looking a little bit dark in this area. So I'm just going to get an eraser and try and lift a little bit of that off. Brighten the face up. I want the face to be nice and bright. Looks a bit better. Then with the Ivory black pencil, I'm going to add a few little sketchy lines. Just in those shadow areas. And I'm going to go underneath on these little icing parts. I'm going to add some little shadows just under there to kind of make those look more three-dimensional. Put some underneath the little buttons. Underneath these parts on the legs, get a shadow underneath them, make them pop out. Then I've got this granite grey colour and I'm going to add a little bit of shading onto these little icing parts. So just kind of to the right, left hand side and bottom areas of the bumps. And then maybe at the bottom of these ones, just the bottom area. I've got the strawberry. I'm going to erase a little bit out of the cheeks so I can add some of that strawberry colour. A little touch of red and blend it out. And then maybe just put a little curve the bottom area like that. And then I actually forgot to put the red on the buttons. I was going to do those in red watercolour, so I'll just quickly put a little bit of this lovely bright red on those. With the Ivory black, just add a little bit more shading just under the feet here, just a little bit. I'm going to use the chocolate, just add some more darkness in some areas, a little bit of texture in the snow. I've got the Chinese white pencil and I really want to highlight some areas, make them a little bit lighter. Just add a little bit of lightness in some areas. Like the main body, I want it to be a little bit lighter. And the final thing is going to be add some snow. So we want some white gouache. I'm going to use this small detail brush. This is a number 1 round brush. Sorry, number 0 round by Princeton Velvet Touch. So I'm going to water some of the gouache down. Some of it watery, some of it thick. So I want some of the snow. I'm just going to dot them in, but I want some of them to be a little bit lighter, more, a little bit more translucent, and then some of them a little bit stronger. Now I'm going to make them, see how them ones are drying quite a little, not quite as opaque. So I'm going to get some of the thicker, gouache now and make some really opaque snowflakes. And then I'm going to add just a few sparingly little dots on the gingerbread man himself. And then I want to add a little bit of snow just dotted across here, like it's kind of sitting on the top of his head a little bit. And then on his arm, a little bit on top of the buttons. Okay, so that is it, I think. I think that looks really cute. I'm going to get a really dark, I think I'll get the chocolate brown and go on the inside of the washi tape and make a brown line. I'm going to get the washi tape off. I'm going to very carefully cut on the outside of that brown line. So it should fit really nicely on the card. Yeah, I think that looks really cute. And there you can see the gorgeous gold fragments in the background. I think it looks really nice. The camera really does not do that justice. It's hard to pick up on camera. It really sparkles in real life. So my next video will be another one of these, and I'm just going to do a series of these throughout November. It's going to do lots of different Christmas designs. And that's the finished card. Okay, so thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please give me a like, subscribe and comment. If you've got the option to hype, could you please hype the video if you've enjoyed it? That'll all help me out on YouTube. And I'll be back on Wednesday with a new design for this Christmas card series.